Hi again, everyone, and welcome to another very special, brand new edition of Dead Men Talk. And this show's very, very much has still got a lot of life into it because there's still a lot of people out there that I really, really want to talk to. And not least the gentleman I've got with me today, another very talented author, the author behind this little gem, Dylan McFinn and the Sea Serpent's Fury. Liam Jenkins, welcome to the show, mate.
Thank you very much. Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah. How are you, sir?
I'm all right. I'm not too
Good,
bad. Not too
good.
bad. I've had a
Getting
good
over
day.
getting over the heat. We're going to date this podcast quite early,
Okay.
but the weather we've been having, I don't know about you, but it's been frustrating the hell out of us. That
Oh, it's been really unseasonal. Very
just
annoying.
yeah, yeah. Let's not have summer
And then
until technically summer's over.
let's have it all when the kids are back at school.
Absolutely,
You know.
absolutely. Listen, mate, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Oh no, thank you. Likewise.
Any chance that I get to talk to someone of the same ilk. I've had a lot of different creative minds on here, but I do love getting to talk to fellow authors because I love, I sometimes have, writer's block, I have imposter syndrome and things like
Yeah.
that. And
Oh yeah.
it's great to talk to other people and find that we all have the same challenges, but it's great to delve into how other writers' creative processes work. So I can't wait to tap into yours.
Tap
Um,
away.
Tap away. This is like I say, I'll keep flashing this up whenever I can.
Oh, thank you. No,
This is such a great book. I've had the privilege of reading it ahead of this episode. And before we delve into the book itself, I suppose if we kind of introduce you, so do a little bit of almost like blind date, really. Who are you? Where'd you come from? That kind of thing. Yeah, just give us a little bit of background on you and sort of your story before your writing, if you know what I mean. Lay a bit of groundwork.
Okay. How far? How far should we go?
Don't mind, however far back you want to go that you
Okay.
feel
All
is
right. So,
necessary.
I suppose historically, writing was never high on my agenda. It wasn't something that I it's like my little son, my little boy. He's a natural born reader. He sits down, he's two and a bit now, and he just sits and it's all pigeon language. You can't really, but he sit there and he read the whole book and he's read it to himself.
Right.
I didn't do that,
Yeah.
and I didn't do that all the way through. I was interested in books, of course, but it was never something that it was a natural thing for me. I
Yeah.
was always too busy climbing things, jumping off things, making dens or what have you outside,
Yeah.
and watching telly. you
Yeah, I
know,
was guilty for that.
I think it's a boy thing. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a more visual thing. I don't know. We were a lot more blokes are a bit more visually
I'm with you
um,
there. Yeah.
sort of spurred on, aren't we? But
Yeah.
and the children's telly back when I grew up. I mean, probably show my age, but um, the likes of He-Man and Thundercats and
Yeah.
Jason the Wheeled Warriors and
The golden
Cities
era,
of
really.
Gold
Yeah.
and I was rewatching another one the other day, which was Nightmare. Do you remember Nightmare?
Yes, I do.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah, well, I
yeah.
think we're from the same era, by the
I think
sounds
we
of it.
are. I think we are. So it was
Why
all that
would
stuff.
not being funny? Why would we want to be, have our heads in books
Well,
when we
exactly.
have that kind of stuff
It
going?
was such a sweet spot of children's TV and the movies as well. The movies were amazing, and
Yeah.
you can understand why they keep looking to rewrite all these fantastic films from the mid 80s to early 90s, late 90s.
Yeah.
So we had all that, which was always sparking my imagination. And then you'd pretend to be, I don't know, Indiana Jones or Ray Stantz from Ghostbusters or what have you.
Yeah.
Um, but so as a young boy, that was my go-to.
Mm.
And then when it came to writing, it wasn't until I hit probably mid 20s when I got involved with public relations.
Okay.
Um, and I've always I've always tinkered with it. I've always liked the idea of writing, but I never really got round to doing it
Yeah.
properly. But when it got into PR, I really learned the craft,
Okay.
and I loved the craft. And although the industry that I was in was incredibly dusty and dull, it
Yeah.
was financial services. I would say I would apologise to anyone in financial services, but I'm not going to. It is dull, and they know that.
First
uh,
hand. Yeah, we can believe
um,
you.
so it was turning writing press releases that were exciting, I suppose, and it
Mm.
when you're writing about a a hedge fund or something, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy that side of it, and then I began writing articles, and then moved on to another agency and what have you. But and then that's where it started,
Yeah.
um, and then it sort of moved into. I then sort of tried to sort of meld the two together because I was always watching films and whatever. And I thought,
Yeah.
I'll give writing a bit of a go, but I didn't know where to start. I didn't know how to do it. When it
Yeah.
comes to the creative environment, writing a press release with something is easy because it structures you and you know
Yeah.
what's what. But when you're writing a story, I was like, well, I really want to write a book, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know
Mm.
where to start. I don't know how to piece it all together.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I was listening to one of your podcasts previously. Is it James McCaffrey?
Dave McCaffrey. Yeah.
Dave, Dave,
Yeah.
Dave McCaffrey. He was talking about the beat sheet,
Yes. Yeah.
and I was like, I do a beat sheet. I didn't know what it was called, but I do it. And it's when
Fantastic.
I was, and I this is what I sort of explain to people when they say, "Oh, how do you write a book?" Then I said, "Well, for me, this is how I do it, which is I sort of write down what I want to happen in that chapter, and
Yeah.
then I flesh it out, and that's a beat sheet apparently, which
It
is
is.
brilliant. Which
And
I
I
know,
never knew that because as I've divulged quite a few times on these episodes, I don't tend to plan. So
no,
that, what you've just said, that's really, really interesting to me in that what you were doing for your job at the time is almost the reverse of what I
yeah.
thought was going to happen there. That kind of, do you feel like that gave you the idea of the structure? Would you have had that before if you decided to start
I
writing without that?
think what it did is it just gave me the confidence to be able to write,
Yeah, okay.
and I, from a point of view that if you can imagine, I was at school, I learned how to just be invisible, disappear.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily smart, which I was, but I didn't want to show it.
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily stupid, so I
Mm.
knew how to sort of sit in that
Yeah.
area of the middle. And I'm sure there's lots of mums and dads that sort of pulling their hair out with their boy at the moment. Oh, he needs to apply himself
Yeah.
because he's a smart kid. He's just not doing.
Potential. That's when they
Yeah,
use that
thank
word,
you,
isn't it? Yeah.
potential, and that's what I was like. And it was just like school for me, which was strange because in my junior years, I I loved junior school, but then I got
Mm.
to secondary school, and then it's like a jungle. You're then released
Yeah.
into the jungle, and it's a survival mode.
Yeah.
Um, and I just wasted a lot of, I suppose, opportunity there. Um, through well, you're growing up as well, and it's a funny time.
Mm.
But you know,
Yeah. You
from,
don't,
yeah, so it was like the lost years, and then I felt like I was
yeah.
clawing it back in my late teens, early 20s.
Yeah.
So I've gone on peace now.
No, no, and that's what's beautiful about this kind of thing. Everyone's story goes in different directions.
Yeah,
It's almost like what you were talking about there, like your school days and that. It is like talking to myself because that is exactly I can definitely relate to that. I was exactly the same. Loved the early years. I've been finding some of my old school topic books recently when I've been going back to my mum's house where I grew up, and this was all junior school stuff. I loved it, and
yeah.
I you could see the creative side then, even though I didn't realize it. I was writing stories and I loved it. It got to secondary school, and you know what? If I could erase those years completely, I would. Because I don't really remember them anyway. I didn't get any. I don't feel like I got anything from them until
I
I
didn't.
left.
Yeah, I didn't do what I should have done there.
No.
And it was like things like drama. I was really good at drama,
Okay.
but I didn't do it. I remember being asked to go into the school play because they
Mm.
said you're really good at improvisation and being silly in the class
Yeah.
as well,
Yeah. Yeah.
doing well in that. And the reason that I didn't do it is because I didn't want to be ridiculed and made fun of by the cooler lads
Yeah.
of the year
Yeah.
group. I remember in my mind, and I just thought, what a wasted opportunity. It's just stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so, so that's kind of why I thought, and it was like a moment in time. I just went, I'm going to write a book. I don't know what I'm going to write.
Hmm.
I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to finish it all the way through.
Okay.
Because people go, oh, what do you want to do that for? What a waste of time. And I just thought, no, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write it all the way. I have to see this through.
Yeah.
Whatever reason. So yeah,
that's brilliant. No, that's brilliant. And it's funny because you say that nowadays to kids and that, and I can't encourage kids enough to want to read and want to write. And I don't just mean, you know, the skill of reading, right? I mean creatively. And I think it's a really cool thing now. It's considered a really cool thing to do.
It is. It seems to have gone full circle. It doesn't
really has. Yeah.
sort of nerdy and dweeby anymore. It's really quite. It's sort of praised. In fact,
yeah.
You know, like, oh wow, what are you reading? And that's interesting. You know, which is brilliant. It seems to be. Really got a new lease of life.
It has really been harnessed. I having written a couple of children's books myself, and that, you know, once I was writing the stuff that I started off with, which was more adult fiction, it wasn't until I wrote the children's ones that I kind of thought, okay, you know, the effect you can have on inspiring the younger generation to do it. And if I decided if I could do that, even if I don't sell a million books myself, I've done something.
Well, that was
it started to mean more.
That was one of the reasons why I did it, because I wanted to inspire the younger me.
Yeah.
To bloody do something. That
is a great way of looking at it. The younger you, rather than, you know, faceless masses.
Yeah, it was just one. If it's one, I'll tell a lie. No, it isn't. I want millions to go and buy it.
Of course, yeah. That aside,
yeah, I want millions to go and buy it. But if I reach one, he then decides to go and write a book that he never thought he could.
Yeah,
that for me is fulfilling.
And that's the true art of writing. What was that? So the first book then that you wrote, is it the one we're about to talk about, or was it something else that then led to this?
Well, it was. It started out as a cartoon.
Oh, okay.
This book started out as a cartoon because
interesting.
It was on a. Sorry, I'm fidget.
No, don't.
It was on a family holiday. We went to Madeira with my in-laws, and we went for a. I love snorkeling. I love everything to do with the sea, and this we lead on to this. Yeah. And Madeira is quite rocky and coastal, but it's got some brilliant places to snorkel.
Okay.
So I've done it loads of times, and none of them have done it. I said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, I'll go and get the kit, and I'll teach you how to do it. So I then took them around the bay, 4 of them, and they loved it. I had a lovely time. They come back, and then they said, oh, that's great. We're going to start calling you Captain Snork. And I went, oh, yeah, that'll make a good character. That'll make a good character for a book.
Right.
And then stuff started to roll from that point onwards. And initially, it was supposed to look like some sort of Johnny Bravo character with a snorkel mask on, and then it started to snowball from there. But it didn't fit.
Okay.
And then I just started to write characters. Like I had a seagull called Louis or something, which was just a character. It didn't really go anywhere.
Right.
But then it started to develop into what it is now, and Captain Snork became Dylan Murphy.
Okay. Yeah.
And initially it was Dylan Murphy, and this is a learning from your mistakes scenario, which is make sure you research your market before you publish your book, because Dylan Murphy is also. I'm not going to publicize this chap's book, but Dylan Murphy is another character. And I had to take it down. I had to stop it. Yeah, but I prefer McFinn.
It's a very cool sounding name.
Yeah, so we got Dylan McFinn, and away we went.
Cool.
And then we went back to Madeira a few years later. Side note, in-laws have a time show out there, so we get reason why we go.
Very cool.
And it was a nice sort of tie off, because the next time I went, so I put all the building blocks in place. A couple of years later, the next time we went, I actually sat down. I remember vividly writing the very first few words on a bit of scrap piece of paper, sat there on a sun lounger, and then it was because I was waiting for that spark of in fact, no, before that, there was a place called Neptune's Tower, which is like a lookout tower, which is in the book.
Yeah.
And I was looking out to sea, listening to my iPod, and my wife now, who was my fiance back then, said, get down, get down, get down. I was just looking out at the waves, and then it was like a bolt of lightning. It hit me, and I was like, I need to write, I need to write, I need to write. So I just got a bit of scrap paper and I started writing it down, and then I went into town and bought a notebook, and I just started scrawling it down, and it was going. Then it was rolling. So
Fantastic.
that's the inception of the story.
And it is that bolt of inspiration, and this is what always fascinates me as well, because I've had it at the most random times, and unfortunately, it always happens when I've never got anything that I can capture it. You were able to, even though you were on holiday, it came to you. You were able to find some way of not losing that. And do you agree that once it is that act of finally writing something down, that then it just gives you free rein for it to just flow, and the more you write it down, the more it expands by itself?
You know what? Yeah, it's I've been listening to because I say to my wife, I'd write chapters and say, I don't remember writing that. I don't even remember being in the room.
Yeah.
And she said, well, you've channeled that.
And
I say, well, yeah, I must have. And I think it's a form of automatic writing potentially.
Yeah.
If you believe, that you can tap into another source, and it just flows through you, and then you end up writing it, and it's all fits and starts.
Yeah.
And I want to try and hone that craft, but it was definitely a something which happens to me now and again. Like you say, I do the beat sheet, but then all of a sudden I get these bolts of inspiration, and you need to be writing it down, even if you've got your smartphone, you tap away a quick few words, and then it gives you that sort of kickstart, and then you go, oh right, okay, yeah. Because if you don't, then it's gone.
And that is it. And I've lost. I'm making excuses for myself now, but I think I've lost so many potentially great ideas because I've not forced myself to do that, and I've been like, I'll remember that later, and then it's gone, and that's it. And then I try to remember it a couple of weeks down the line, and it no longer resembles what it did at the time.
Right.
So that's brilliant. So let's delve into it then. Tell us a little bit, without obviously, spoiler free, just kind of give us an idea of what Dylan McFinn is about.
All right. So the book is based around the McFinns, which Colbert is the father, and he lives on the island, lived there all his life. He's quite a notorious sailor, legendary status around the island and what have you, and he's a bit of a Heath Ledger. Not Heath Ledger. Heath Robinson, Heath Ledger. What I'm talking about. Heath Robinson character. It's been a long day. Where he sort of fits and puts things together, and he mends and makes do, and he just makes these interesting inventions, along with having this mysterious history of being a sailor of greatness.
Yeah.
And one evening he goes out after drinking too much rum in his friend's local tavern, Neptune's Tower, which has its own mystical story behind it. He sees a sort of a swelling out in the ocean as he walks back home to his lighthouse, and he goes out to investigate, and it turns out it's a mermaid. And as all mermaids do, he falls instantly in love with her. She steals a kiss, and off she swims, and then he feels, I'm never going to see her again, and then he just sort of gets on with his day-to-day life. Turns out he does see her again, and I won't go into too much there, but the story then revolves around Dylan and his younger brother Axios. Well, it moves on from them because obviously they need to be born, but
that gives you a flavour of what does happen.
That gives you a flavour, and then it's a bit of a rite of passage. So Colbert then asks Dylan, for your birthday, I'm going to take you back to the island. Well, a bit of a spoiler there. They're elsewhere. But you read it, you'll find out. And then he said, I'm going to take you for a camping trip around the island, and he's very excited. And they go back, but everything else has changed. the island has completely changed. They don't know why, and then everything starts to unravel. It's set in the Pacific, in the archipelagos of the Fijian Islands. Maloto, which is what it's called, is fictitious, but the myth and the mystery around the stories of Kadavu and Dakuanga, which are an octopus and a shark god, are allegedly true.
And that's perfect segue into where I wanted to go next, actually,
Right.
because so you've answered one question there, in that the island is fictitious. What was your inspiration for basing it where you did? And those myths, those legends that you talked about there, why did you pick those?
I picked there. Well, there's two reasons. One is that I thought, like all writers, my book is going to be brilliant. It's going to be a bestseller. Doesn't matter. I'm going to make millions from the first book, and I want to go scuba diving around Fiji, Tonga, and what have you. So I'll pick there. It's quite nice, and I can go and live there when I've sold thousands of millions of copies of my book. So that was point one. That's the reason why I picked Fiji. But I also I picked it because I'm just fascinated with the place, and I was looking for. I'll rewind a little bit. I'm absolutely obsessed with sharks, so to speak. I watched Jaws when I was about 8. Mum and Dad didn't know. I was watching it up in my bedroom,
Right.
and I think I picked it up about a quarter of the way through, and it's when they go out to investigate the one of the boats that had been struck by the shark, and then the head pops through with the eye.
Yes, I know exactly.
But I caught that bit,
right?
And I was not only scared stupid. I wanted to turn it off. I couldn't turn it off, so I ended up watching the whole thing, and it does shape me. It shaped my psyche. I wouldn't have a bath for 6 months for fear he was going to come up through the plug hole. I wouldn't go down the deep end in the swimming pool because that's where he lived.
I still don't, for that very reason. So.
Yeah. So it then shaped me, and I love that film. I watch it every 4th of July when it's, the time it's set.
Yeah.
I've read the books. Oh, it's fantastic. It's still one of the best. If you haven't seen it, watch it, because it's not only. I mean, the shark is ridiculously stupid, but
by today's standards, but back then,
it's the acting in the film itself, which even today's standards is impeccable. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I would agree.
So that was the reason. So I was looking at. I love myths and legends as well, and I was seeing if I could pair the two. Were there any myths, apart from Celtic, because there's a lot of Celt myths and legends around the sea. I kind of wanted to. I don't know why I wanted to steer away from that. I think it's because it was based in Fiji. I picked it. And then I found out about Kadavu and Dakuanga, which is a fascinating story. It's so that I'll condense it. So there was a shark god, killer shark, killer whale, killer great white killer shark. Thank you. Demigod.
Yeah.
He was a shapeshifter, and he was going from island to island, sort of claiming them as his own. And then he came to one island, and all the islands are supposed to have their own demigods which guard them. And Kadavu then decided to take one of the bigger islands, and it was guarded by Dakuanga, which is an octopus demigod.
Yeah.
So then a great battle ensued, and the octopus god won. Dakuanga won, and he banished him into the sea, and that's why the Fijians then offer do their offerings in the sea because of that. So it's a bit of mythology there, but it was but it just sparked something. I thought there's something to stick with that.
Yeah. It's mythology that I absolutely love, history and mythology, and it's one of my ambitions one day to be able to bring one of those aspects into one of my stories, write something historical or mythological. the amount of research and that behind it, did you have to be quite careful that you didn't stray from did you want to stay quite close to the original myths, or was there a little bit of sort of poetic license you
There's
used
always a
there?
little bit of poetic license, but I mean, yeah, it's all about. There's a lot of stuff in there which needs to be factually correct. So
Yeah,
it's research, 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 and that's why I picked and made up the island Maloto, because I can't really go wrong because I've made it
it's
up.
yours. Yeah, yeah,
And if I get some, land, topography wrong,
yeah,
geography wrong,
yeah,
and I say, well, it doesn't really. It's a made up place, so
yeah.
and that's why I picked it.
That's cool.
But with the animals and the mammals, and some of the flora and fauna within the book, that has to be accurate. So I did a ton of research into that.
Cool.
And also when it came to the names of the characters, they're all sort of foreshadowing something, which, was a lot of research that went into the names. It wasn't a coincidence. Like, it was Big Dylan.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got a great character set in this book. I will say that.
Thank you
they're
very
all
much.
really entertaining. They all kind of interlock together perfectly. Are there any particular like favorites that you like to write, or any in there that were inspired by anyone you know, for example?
There is. Well, Rusty is, I think, he's like Brian Blessed.
That's a cracking.
Yeah, that's what I get from him. And if when everyone reads it, they see it. He's Colbert's friend, and he makes cannibal rum in Neptune's Tower, and he's just got this big ginger, things growing in his beard, and I just had Brian Blessed in from Blackadder, I think the first one.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's him. That's him in my mind's eye.
Cool.
Colbert is actually a mixture of myself, along with Dylan. I've got a little bit of me in those two characters, I suppose. Yeah. There is a character on the parrot is after somebody. I won't explain who.
I do like the parrot. Again, he's one of those characters. I suppose he's there. He doesn't say a lot necessarily, but it's great when he's there. I got from
so
that.
Annoying.
Yeah, exactly. He's one of those that you could just imagine.
You just want to throw it. Yeah, I mean, Axnius is loosely based very loosely upon my brothers and I relationship, and the fact that we're chalk and cheese.
Okay.
Not to say that he does those. He doesn't do what Axnius loves to, but we just different characters, and I pulled upon that. Sid I like because it helped me to narrate the story through him. Sorry, her.
Yeah.
And I took that from Holly from Red Dwarf.
I knew you were going to say that. I had this as soon as not before now, but when you kind of answering this question, you mentioned Sid. I was like, I wonder. That's sort of.
I'm so pleased.
That's sort of what I got.
Pick up on that.
Yeah,
because it is. And when you watch Red Dwarf, you're like, and she helps along the story, and I wanted Sid to help along the story.
Yeah.
Cool. And then other characters they just took their own shape.
Yeah.
But the family dynamic is definitely based upon, again, loosely about my family. Yeah.
Cool. No, that's I'm always intrigued. These kind of things absolutely love kind of delving into. So in terms of the story itself, what's your kind of your demographic, your age group that you're aiming for? Anything that you would compare it to? That people are looking for. Something to compare it to without, you can't really compare it to anything, I know, but because it's your work, but
I know what you mean. I suppose if you were to compare it to something, I've always said that it sits in between. There's 3 books it sits in between, or 2 books and 1 film in my mind, which is, and I hate to use the cliche, but it's Harry Potter, I think. Harry Potter mixed with Percy Jackson with a bit of Fern Gully thrown in for good measure.
Oh, okay.
And I think if you put those three elements together, then you come up with my book.
Yeah, yeah. Percy Jackson definitely. I'll again. I was there. That's definitely a feel I got from it. I think I've read it, and it's one I'm passing on to my kids. They're both avid readers.
Right.
They're both a great reading age. They're both 9, and they really getting into adventure books and chapter books and that. I think they will both love it. Mainly my son loves the kind of mythology sort of thing. Percy Jackson he's got on his bookshelf, whereas my little girl loves anything kind of mermaid, again dragons, that kind of thing. So it's almost like you can cover a really wide spectrum. It's aimed at it's. Would you say it's not a kid's book necessarily? I mean, what sort of age group do you think it's?
Well, I mean, I goes back to the point where I wanted to write, and you've got these tools that you write something, and then it explains the writing age that you're writing at.
Yeah.
So I thought I didn't want to try and trip myself up too much, so I just wrote something and then put it into this algorithm thing, and it said, "Yeah, you're writing at an age group of about 9 to 12."
Yeah.
I thought, great. Well, if it's not going to interfere with my writing, if I'm going to think too much about it, then that's what I'm going to write. But funny enough, I found out that help me out here, Dan Brown. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Dan Brown writes at 12, and whoever we're listening, if I've got this wrong, then shoot me down in flames. But he writes in a style of a very a basic style of a sort of 12 to 13-year-old, because typically, on average, that's the reading level of a population.
Oh wow.
So or a country,
yeah,
and here. So, and that's why people say, "Oh, this is rubbish," but I can't put it down.
Yeah.
Which is completely false, because I love Dan Brown stuff. Anyway, off beat, but that's where it started, and that's why I just thought I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to write it as
it should be,
it should be. But I've had kids from as young as 6 to people in their 60s and 70s that have really enjoyed the book, and they've said, "I've read this 2 or 3 times." I've got an uncle-in-law that's read it about 4 or 5 times.
Really?
So
wow.
he loves it. And he's only 80 now. So
wow. Does that help then when you're thinking of other things that we'll come on to in a bit, your other projects outside of this book in particular? If you know that you've written something that has appealed to that broader spectrum, does it make it easier or harder when it comes to thinking about something else? Do you feel pressured that you need to do that again?
Well, yeah, this is interesting, because I don't know if I'm going to be pigeonholed or not, because so Dylan 2, it's not called that, but Dylan 2 is written. Dylan 3 is in the works.
Okay.
But I'm also working on a side project, which is not going to be a kid's book. It's going to be, adult fiction.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much difference in it, if I'm honest.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
could be the Dan Brown thing then, because how accessible his books are. I won't say I'll hold my hands up and say I haven't read them myself. I'm one that if I've seen the film, I find it very difficult to go back and read the book, just because it's already in there and I can't really shake that. But just see what he's done with that, and it could well come down to one of the reasons is he made his writing style so accessible to so many people.
I think. Well, I hope so. And we'll see. We'll see when I move on to the next book.
Cool. So let's just briefly touch on as well when the book came out. Let's talk about that. So you had the idea, you'd written it. How did you go about getting it out there? What was your publishing journey, I suppose, in whichever route you took?
Publishing journey's an interesting one, because it's taken a bit of a turn. Initially, it was self-published. It was on Amazon. I put it on Amazon. I went through the process. I bought Vellum. I actually bought the Mark Dawson Self-Publishing 101,
Okay.
which the course for that. Which, if anybody's looking to do it, it's a fantastic walkthrough. Brilliant course. If anyone's looking to buy that, I would seriously recommend it. So I got it to that point, got the cover work done, and bang, and then I was doing it myself. But for some reason, I thought I need a publisher. I need it published.
Yeah.
Although it is published, I think it's because of the reaction I used to get with people.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily true nowadays. But
No.
bear in mind, this has been in. I think we release it, pre-COVID. So,
right. Okay.
but for whatever reason, I had in my mind that I must be with a publisher. And after many rejections, I got a publisher, and I was over the moon. And I was with a publisher, and I've actually this month sacked them, and I've now taken back control of my book, because the lines are now, in my opinion, incredibly blurred between self-publishing and traditional.
Yes.
There's not a lot that they offer you more than that you can do yourself.
Yeah.
The only thing I think that with my ex-publisher was the connections. It's also the gravitas that it gives you. So if you want to speak to a celebrity or something, or get in front of them, when you're with a publisher and you say, "Well, speak to my publisher," then you get taken a lot more seriously than if you're self-published. But you know what? That's something that I'm willing to take a chance on, because they did best part of nothing.
Fair enough. And I had a similar kind of journey to you. I've done a mix of independent publishers and self-publishing. I started off, my first book went out with an independent publisher, and I had the same kind of thing. You have this expectation, I suppose, especially when you first get into it, that being with a publisher, everything is going to be different than what you can do yourself. Everything, you'll have a lot of this done for you. Not that I was lazy. It was just like all of a sudden I've got that reach. It didn't work out with my first book. I decided to then self-publish my next 2 or 3. Publish them myself. Learned so much about that process that probably, had I not done that, I may have given up. I think if you can experience what it takes to put something out there, you have a deeper sense of pride with it as well.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Just the marketing side is the issue. I find the biggest challenge is the marketing side. What about?
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, so I've seen your book. I've seen you post out that it's in shops and things like that. How did you was that you? Were you able to get that in there?
Well, again, okay, with the publisher, they could get you into Waterstones, and I am or still am in Waterstones, but that was all led by me. I did a book launch, and my local Waterstones, they took 30 copies and they sold most of them, and then they kept a few.
Okay.
And then I went in there and made sure they're on the bloody shelves. Or I went into where I used to work in Godalming. I went into the local Waterstones and said, "Can you order this in?" So it wasn't like it was flowing through the shops. I mean, and even so, that's we've got to find it and then book it in. It was weeks in, so but that was, but the marketing side of it, you can do it. You can do it now. Although it is a massive bind, it's one of those things that I cannot be asked with.
Yeah.
Although I get told, wife especially, you must do it. You must do it. You must do it. I cannot be bothered. I'd much rather be writing.
Exactly, and you spent so long writing it. You then, to know that you've got to do more work to put it out there. I know, we all need to work at this kind of thing, but once you poured your heart and soul into something, you just want people to read it.
Just read it. I don't want to tell you about it. Just please read it.
Yeah,
it's great.
Yeah,
See my reviews. So but
Yeah, exactly.
it, but I know it's a necessary evil
It is.
until
Yeah.
things start to then generate their own momentum. But
Mm.
it's getting that momentum going is
Yeah.
what takes it, and that's why I was so pleased getting a publisher, because I was thinking, right, they're going to nail that. I can then focus on other things.
Yeah.
It's not true. They
No.
do best part of F all
Mm.
to and then it's very reactive. I don't know if it's with all agencies, but definitely with my publisher, it was very, very reactive.
Yeah, I will I'm with you there. You know, again, I'm not going to name any names. I've been with 4
No,
independent publishers alongside the titles that I've actually put out myself. Very, very similar experiences there. It seems like there is a lot promised, but then you're still doing as much. You know, marketing wise, they seem to do something at the start, but then it's never kept up. So
massively front loaded.
yeah, definitely. So I'm very much an advocate of self-publishing. I've gone back that way. I came away, my last publisher that I had my horror books out with. um I did have a good experience with them. It was just circumstance. It was, COVID got in the way as well. Once I took those back, I'm kind of like, I'm on my own time scale now. I do get frustrated that they're not all back out there. I'm editing my last one now, but at least I've got that drive. It's on me. I can't put it down to anyone else, and I'm not being pressured by anyone else now, or feeling like someone else should be doing something. It's all me. So I no, fair play to what you're doing. And the fact that this book, it's fantastic, and to know that it came to life really through your own work, is another testament to what you've done.
Thank you. But yeah, that's how it felt with the publisher, that they just didn't.
No.
They didn't really get it. And because if they did, then they would have pushed a bit harder, in my opinion.
Yeah. Again, I think there's a lot of writers out there. You see more and more of them doing it themselves now.
I think we'll get a point when agencies won't exist, because
probably not. Yeah.
Well, I think when people really start to get up to speed with self-publishing, and it loses that stigmatism.
Yeah.
Of being, oh, you're only self-published. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
When that goes, which it seems to be eroding.
It does. Yeah. Which I'm pleased with, because when the first time I did that, I felt exactly the same. It's like almost, because I was at one of the first like public events that I did. There was a guy who came to the table, and you could see him. There was me and another author that I was there with, and we both had self-published titles, and you could just see almost like the condescension from them, and just the grimacing from us when we had to talk about it. You shouldn't have to feel that we've done lesser work. We've actually done more. So, let's leave the big traditional publishers to the celebrities who think that.
Let's leave them. Let's put themselves Williams, who has a team of ghostwriters, and he can do all that. Fine.
Exactly. That's what they're going to be flooded with.
Well, it's interesting because I've got a friend who is with Penguin.
Okay.
And she said that the experience is very, very similar.
Is it really? Okay.
So
interesting.
Yeah. Interesting stuff.
So let's talk. What's anything else that you've been working on? There's a prequel out there as well.
There is a prequel. I think you can get it for free on my website. I need to double check that I've got that right. But you can have it if it's on the website. Have it for free. I just meant the link. If I've got the links working. But yeah, so that's a prequel, which is a giveaway. It's a freebie, and that explains basically it's called the Battle of the River Chaos, and then it talks about the fight between Kadavu and Dakuanga, and the Midnight Marauders, which are the villagers, the sort of the forest folk of the island, and they sort of warded him off. But I've given most of it away though.
No, that's cool, and I will be reading that myself as well, because that's, again, when I read a story, if there's something else out there which pads it out a little bit, quite a fan of that. So any new projects? You hinted that you've written the second book to this.
Yeah, book two will be out. I'm hoping late October. Again, it's just going through the copy got the edit phase, you know, and then I need to proofread, and then
Yeah.
we do that, and then but the shouldn't take too long. So end of October for book 2, which is Dylan McFinn and the Temple of the Four Winds. So that's book 2, and book 3 is in the works, which is I'm hoping that, well, it's going to be a trilogy.
Okay.
I'm hoping it's going to be a trilogy.
I was going to say, is there any risk then that once you finish it, you think there'll be more, or are you confident that you
well,
want
this is
to
the
tell
thing.
it all?
I began writing it with no clue of how it was going to end. Well, no,
Yeah.
sorry, that's a lie. I had a start point and a finish point, but I didn't know this bit in the middle.
Yeah.
And I sort of guessed that it was going to be about 6 books, but I don't know if I can be asked to write 6 books. So we'll see. We'll see if it takes a night, and I don't want to cram it all into the last one and go, oh, there you go, and then it really sort of dips off in quality. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm on book 3, and if it takes that nice natural, meandering finish, then brilliant. If it's 4 books, so be it. But or 5, whatever. But yeah, I don't want to rob the characters of a story just because I can't be bothered.
No, that's fair.
But the other story, which my wife is and me, we're quite spiritualist, you know, and we're into anything a little bit that side of things, and I'm quite fascinated into tarot and tarot cards.
Okay.
I just find them really interesting, and it's quite interesting about their backstory and their lineage and where they all come from, you know. And I thought, oh, there's a story here, and I'm not going to go into it too much because
that's good.
It's not really there.
No.
You know, but that's one of them, and the other one is also where I live, where I currently live, which is I live on a 70-acre estate, and the people who, I won't name names and stuff, but the people that are here, the chap who owns the place here, the 19th century Gothic sort of, it looks like a big castle.
Very nice.
Sort of 8 or 9 bedroom castle, all whitewash, as you can imagine. It's got tennis courts, swimming pools, a couple of follies. There's a lot of we've got a wood, and it's called the Sculpture Park, and it's got tons of geometric sculptures in there.
Okay.
There's something in there called the Gordian Ring, which is quite an interesting sculpture. There's tons of, and it's all geometrical patterns, and there's stuff like Latin, sort of in big blocks of granite and things, all carved in. There's a sword in the stone.
Oh wow!
Statue. There's also, I forgot to mention, as you come in, stone circle at the bottom of the bloody.
Oh, okay.
So we've got our own mini Stonehenge at the bottom of the.
There's got to be some stories behind that as well.
Well, this is the thing, but I found out that he is part. Well, he's a member of Bohemian Grove, and for those who don't know what Bohemian Grove is, it's based in the US, and it's a lot of dignitaries and US presidents and people of the creative arts go there, and it's basically a big willy waving competition, all the men how much beer they can drink, but all these big heads of society in the US go there. And so Bohemian Grove, if you look into what attached to Bohemian Grove, it's fascinating.
You'd be daft as a writer not to pick up on something, then, wouldn't you? Really,
there's people wandering about here that are just brilliant characters. The guy that I work with on the estate, because I do gardening as my day job, he's 90,
right,
and he's still working on the estate. All his hair fell out in June, so when I started, full head of hair, white hair, and now he looks like an egg walking around. And it's mad, but he just keeps working.
There's a character there.
Character there.
Yeah.
and I will use them
Yeah.
because they are characters. In fact, they are
Yeah.
really quite interesting people.
Yeah.
Um,
And
and
you
it's just
want that. You want, you don't want everything you write to be completely fantastical. You want there to be a story behind it. Again, going back to the very reason I started this podcast is, what is there that goes behind everything, this setting, this character, this line, the book title, everything's there for a reason.
everything is there for a reason. And this is a fantastic place.
Mm.
It's definitely queued, but I've got Dylan 3, the Four Weapons, which is the the tarot thing, and then I've got this one. So
wow, you have to keep yourself busy.
It will keep me busy. Yeah,
absolutely. Liam, this has been a fantastic, fascinating chat with you, sir. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people, before I let you go, we've talked about everything you do, everything you've got coming up. We've whet people's appetite. Where can they find you? Where can they find out more? Where can they buy your books? Sell yourself for 2 minutes.
Okay, so I'm on Amazon. You can still get my book on Amazon. At the moment, I will be changing again, like I mentioned, publisher. So it will get reskinned, but it'll be the same good quality book. Don't worry about that. You can get it off my website. You probably still can get it in Waterstones and W. Smith's at the moment if you order it. So there's those places. I am on socials under Liam _Jenkins official, I think, on Instagram. And Dylan McFinn, I'm on Facebook as well. So I'm on the socials. So if you want to speak to me or interact, it's brilliant. I love it. I say I love it. I will comment. I will say hello and stuff, but it's content from me that I hate. But if people interact, of course I love that.
Yeah.
But so I'm on there. Book 2 will be put up on Amazon. And if anyone wants to do a advanced review, then get in touch. I'll be more than happy to send out a promo copy, get their views on it. And same goes for book 1.
Brilliant. There you go. I can't recommend it enough, people. There you go. And it's from the horse's mouth. I very, very rarely have people on the show where I'm not familiar with their work. So it's fantastic to be able to have you on here, having already read it. And, there you go. I can vouch for how good it is. For any age, I enjoyed it. My kids are going to enjoy it as well. And like Liam said, people of all ages have already enjoyed it. So that should speak for itself. So, Liam, thank you so much. All the best with everything you've got coming up, mate.
Thanks so much, because I really enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. Very, very welcome at some other time in the future to come back and have another chat and just sort of see what you're up to then as well. But everyone go out there, find Liam on the socials, get his book, and enjoy what's coming up.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram to keep updated about all future shows.